August 12, 1944. A young Navy pilot climbs into what would become his flying coffin, carrying enough explosives to level an entire city block. His name was Joseph Patrick Kennedy Jr., and most Americans have never heard of him. But they should have, because this man was supposed to become president, not his younger brother Jack. Picture this, it's 1938, and the Kennedy family is gathered around their dinner table in Hyannisport. Old Joe Kennedy, the patriarch, points to his eldest son and declares, Joe Jr. will be the first Catholic president of the United States. Everyone nods. It seemed inevitable. Joseph Jr. was everything a political dynasty could want, Harvard-educated, charming, athletic, and blessed with that unmistakable Kennedy magnetism. But here's what the history books won't tell you. Joe Jr. was living under crushing pressure that would have broken lesser men. While his younger brother Jack was free to chase girls in sailboats, Joe Jr. carried the weight of an entire family's political ambitions on his shoulders. Every decision, every relationship, every career move was scrutinized through the lens of future electability. The pressure intensified when World War II erupted. Jack had already become a war hero after the PT-109 incident, earning headlines and admiration across America. Joe Jr. watched from the sidelines, completing routine patrol missions in the Atlantic while his younger brother basked in the glory he was supposed to claim. Friends later recalled how Joe Jr. would pace his quarters at night, muttering about living in Jack's shadow. Then came Operation Aphrodite, and this is where the story takes a chilling turn. The Navy had developed a secret weapon, radio-controlled bombers packed with explosives, designed to destroy Nazi bunkers that conventional bombing couldn't touch. It was essentially a suicide mission with a twist. Pilots would fly these flying bombs toward their targets, then bail out before remote operators guided them to destruction. On that fateful August morning, Joe Jr. volunteered for what everyone knew was the most dangerous mission of the war. His commanding officers tried to talk him out of it. He had already completed his required combat tours, he could have gone home a hero. But witnesses say Joe Jr. looked them dead in the eye and said, "I'm not going home until I've done something that matters." Here's where the story gets genuinely disturbing. At exactly 6:20 p.m., somewhere over the English countryside, Joe Jr.'s bomber exploded in midair. The blast was so massive that it shattered windows 5 miles away. But here's what they never told the Kennedy family, and what remained classified for decades. Joe Jr. wasn't supposed to be in that plane when it exploded. Imagine discovering this just weeks before your own political campaign. What would you do? The official story claimed equipment malfunction. The real story, buried in military files for 60 years, reveals that Joe Jr. deliberately overrode the safety protocols. Radio transcripts show him refusing direct orders to abandon the aircraft. His final transmission, crackling through static, was simply, "Tell my family I tried to be worthy." But the tragedy doesn't end there. In the Kennedy compound, they prepared for a future that would never come. Joe Sr. had already mapped out his eldest son's political career, Congress by 1946, Senate by 1952, and the presidency by 1960. Instead, those dreams transferred to the second son, the one who was never supposed to carry this burden. Jack Kennedy later told close friends that he felt like he was living his brother's life, not his own. Every speech Joe Jr. should have given, every handshake that should have been his, every vote cast for Kennedy that was meant for another man entirely. The 1960 presidential campaign wasn't just about Jack Kennedy versus Richard Nixon, it was about a ghost named Joe Jr. finally reaching the White House through his brother's hands. You'll soon discover something even more heartbreaking. Joe Jr. had been secretly engaged to a socialite named Pat Wilson, but had broken off the engagement because his father deemed her politically unsuitable. She waited for him throughout the war, never knowing that Joe Jr. had planned to defy his father and marry her after completing one final heroic mission. Stay with me because the most chilling part is yet to come. 3 months before his death, Joe Jr. wrote a letter to his father that was never sent, found decades later in his personal effects. In it, he confessed that he didn't want to be president, that the political life terrified him more than any Nazi fighter plane. He dreamed of becoming a teacher, maybe a writer, anything but the political machine his family expected him to feed. The irony cuts deep. The Kennedy brother who died was the one who never wanted power, while the one who survived became legendary for his ambition. But those closest to Jack knew the truth. He carried his brother's unfulfilled destiny like a stone in his chest, making decisions not just for himself, but for the ghost of the brother who should have been standing in his place. Which side do you believe, the official story of equipment failure, or the hidden documents suggesting Joe Jr. chose his fate? Tell us below. The Kennedy family never spoke publicly about Joe Jr.'s final mission. Even today, certain military records remain sealed. But the evidence suggests that on August 12, 1944, a young man chose death over disappointing his family, and in doing so, he accidentally changed the course of American history. When Jack Kennedy stood before the nation in 1961, delivering his famous inaugural address, he was speaking words that Joe Jr. should have said. Every "ask not what your country can do for you" was an echo of a conversation between brothers that never got to happen. The next time you see that famous footage of President Kennedy, remember, you're not just watching a man who became president. You're watching a man who became president because his brother couldn't bear to live as anything less than a hero. I leave you with the song Joe Jr. loved to listen to before dangerous missions, "I'll Be Seeing You" by Billie Holiday. See you in the next video.